Welcome, everybody. It's Wednesday, August 9th. John Aravosis here with the Aravosis Report, coming to you live from Washington, D.C., talking about the latest news from Ukraine. Let me get iPad live rolling on my iPad. 1 second here. Go live. Boom. All right, that works. And introduce yourselves while we are waiting, as always. Let me just get this finished. Mirror my image. There we go. Excellent. Anyway, hello, all. How are we today? Today was a busy day for just because a friend back from out of town, so I had to go visit him today and get this done. Anyway, how are we doing? Hello, England, Jillian. Anyway, hey guys, thank you, Succeed, for the gift. Appreciate that. Hey, Ash. Anyway, yeah, things are okay here. I didn't eat. I snacked before the show, so I will be hungry afterwards, but maybe we'll try to do the Discord and I'll put a pizza on while we're waiting. Thank you there, Pedro, for the gift. Evie, I saw that but it's nowhere. I don't know that I believe it's true. It's nowhere. No one's talking. I mean, it's not anywhere. So to me, it feels like one of those rumors that people pick up on. So thank you, Eva, for the gift. And Jason, thank you guys. Appreciate it. And DMR and John and DMR again. Thank you guys. Oh, yeah. Introduce yourselves. Just kind of say where you're from if you would. Usually we wait a minute or two when we start just to let people kind of come on TikTok and YouTube. Thank you, Jean-François. Merci bien. We sort of wait a little bit. Not wait a little bit, but we wait about a minute or two for folks to join us. So sorry, the commercial thing. I just turn on monetization if they're willing to do it. I never quite know what commercials they throw on YouTube. Anyway, hey, Ireland. Daily Mail. Yeah, it's nowhere else, though, which is what I find suspicious. Thank you, Lee. We're talking about a story that's out there about, supposedly the Wagner group, the mercenary group, getting kicked out of Belarus. Thank you, Chief. But literally nobody has the story. Thank you, Ellen. And Elizabeth. Oh, actually, let me look here. Elizabeth. Interesting. You know what? Elizabeth, you're right, though. It doesn't show SNN. You're right. It does not show you as a member here. You're not a member, according to what I'm seeing on the screen. Very strange. Anyway, that's a whole other problem. Elizabeth's membership has been screwed up from day one. We've been trying to help her. Thank you, Marie. Oh, user 336. All right, guys, let me get rolling here. So welcome, everybody. This is the Aravosis Report. My nightly show we do from Washington, D.C., coming to you live about the latest news from Ukraine. Thank you, Big Hawk. The way the show always works, I will go through the news first. Sometimes I take your questions throughout the news. It just kind of depends what's going on. But then there's a question and answer period at the end where we've got a good half hour of the show this time, I suspect. Thank you, Martin. We'll be able to do questions. Thank you, Kat and Ellie, both. Thank you, Cammie, as well. So I will start. I'm always going to say. I also thank you, Kat. As you're finding out on TikTok right now with all the gifts coming in, I very much appreciate your guys' gifts. I do this full time. And I do it for free. So it really helps me out. Thank you, Allie and McFadge. It really helps me out when you guys do the gifts on TikTok and the gifts on YouTube, because it helps pay my bills, quite literally. So you're helping put the show on. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Who's that? Martin. Everybody's going crazy tonight. And Jason and Martin again. So thank you for doing that on TikTok. I'll always do a shout out when I see the big gifts on TikTok. YouTube, same thing. Super chat, super stickers. I'll do a shout out, but also super chat questions. Thank you, Marcy. If you ever have a super chat question, thank you, Valerie. Really nice meteor shower there. If you guys do a super chat question, I'll always make that as my next question that I answer. All right, guys, let's get rolling. So day 531 of Vladimir Putin's special 3-day military operation in Ukraine. One of the big stories today, thank you, Mark, is a huge explosion. Hey, James in Pittsburgh. A huge explosion at a factory on the outskirts of Moscow. Now, I need to show you a photo so you appreciate what I mean by huge explosion. Look at this photo. I mean, this photo alone is like worth a Pulitzer practically. Look at that scary photo. I'm going to show you guys next. This is the explosion at the factory outside of Moscow. Look at that cloud. I mean, it's insane. Okay. Now, what we know, this is a factory that allegedly makes optics. So you're talking lenses, things to see, right? Optics. Supposedly, from what I hear, thank you, Adventure, we had sort of asked around, and I'm told that the factory was making at least two important military things that we know of. One, they were making optics to upgrade the T-72 tank, which is a mainstay of the Russian military, an older tank. So they're making optics to upgrade it. The second thing, which gets very interesting when you're talking about why you'd have that big of an explosion. I mean, that explosion's huge. Okay, apparently the factory makes some part that goes with artillery shells, that helps make artillery shells. Now, again, hard to know what was the explosive part. Huge explosion. Within literally an hour, the Russians claimed that it was a human error. Now, the thing is, you saw the size of that explosion. How the hell do they know it's human error, right? There's no way within a minute. I mean, look at this thing. Right? An hour after this explosion, you do not know what caused this explosion. You're lucky if you can even get to the site of this explosion, right? The fire that's going on. The fact that the Russians claimed, oh, human error means it was. I refuse to believe this was random chance. Now, adding to the interesting nature of this story, I was watching one of the military, I think it's Michael Ryan, I always forget his name, one of the military experts on Sky News. Thank you, Dora, for the gift. And he was saying, if you were going to hit Moscow, like one of the top three targets in terms of military industrial complex in Moscow, this would be one of the top three targets you would go after. So he himself said it's very interesting that that's the plant that blew up. Now, what some people are saying is that actually, a lot of people are saying they don't think a drone could have done this. What they're saying is they don't think a drone could have done this. That suggests that if a person did it, it was sabotage on the ground. Now, in order to do the sabotage on the ground, think about this. You had to know about the plant. You had to know what the plant produces. Okay, people know generally what the plant produces. You had to know where to plant the bomb exactly inside the plant. That takes some knowledge. You had to be able to get inside of the plant. That takes some knowledge, right? You had to then get to that location in the plant. I mean, you'd think these things would be difficult to do, right? They were able to do all of that. I mean, again, maybe it's random chance. This is one hell of a coincidence if this is random chance. Also, Kelly is saying if it was pyrotechnics, because there was talk about it being a pyrotechnic plant, you'd see secondary explosions. I was wondering about that, Kelly, because when I initially looked at the video, at least in the initial video, you do not see secondary explosions. Secondary explosions are basically if you blow up a building, right? Let's say a warehouse blows up. It blows up and you see an explosion. But if the warehouse was full of firecrackers, you'd see a lot of firecrackers going on. Actually, you guys have seen the same videos I've seen. The people sitting on their front lawn and they decide to light off the fireworks, but it goes at the back of their car and lights all of their fireworks at once. That's a secondary explosion. Basically, you get an explosion, but then all the bombs go off inside and you see other explosions. You don't see that here, which is interesting. Thank you, Adam, which makes me suspicious about that. In any case, this is great. This is probably sabotage. As I said, there's some real coordination and intelligence work going on here. And if this is Ukrainian sabotage, let's hope it bodes well for what happens to the Russian drone factory that they're building with the help of the Iranians that's supposed to go public like early next year. Speaking of drones, there was another drone attack on Moscow today. The Russians are claiming 2 drones. They're claiming they shot them down. Obviously, one should not believe the Russians on anything. But what it does suggest is that Ukraine is absolutely positively convinced that going after Moscow makes sense. And by using the drones, I think they're doing psychological warfare against the residents of Moscow. They want the Russians to feel afraid. They're not going to go after civilians, but they want the civilians to be worried so that regular Russians, not just regular Russians, in Moscow, you're talking the elites. This is they live in the capital. It's like Hunger Games. You know what I mean? Actually, it is exactly like Hunger Games. They're the corrupt, rich people living in the capital. You go after the capital, and all of a sudden it's a different story. The second thing is you're embarrassing Putin. You are terribly embarrassing Putin by constantly hitting Moscow, and they're hitting Moscow almost every day. And even if the drones are getting shot down, how the hell are the Ukrainians who are 500 miles away getting drones to Moscow? That itself is a huge failure for Putin. Now, I suspect that these drones might be done by Russian partisans. meaning these are some Russians that are helping them. They may be getting the drones to the Russians, and the Russians are bringing the drones either right outside of Moscow, or they're bringing the drones right inside Moscow, right? And then setting them and then putting them in the air. But even if that's the case, think about it. That's really interesting if that's the case, because it means that they've got the ability to get somebody right outside of Moscow or right inside Moscow with drones. So even if the Russians shoot them down, it's an incredible security failure that the Ukrainians are even able to get the drones to Moscow, right? Very interesting. So anyway, that's interesting. Another really piece of good news today, Germany announced, or I should say the Ukrainians announced, that the Germans have sent 2 more Patriot missile launchers to Ukraine. And Zelensky announced today that the Ukrainians already have the launchers, which is great. Now, keep in mind, when I say launchers, we are not talking about entire Patriot missile systems. We are talking about one part of it, but an important part. A Patriot missile system, Patriot missiles, very good missile system used for shooting down planes or cruise missiles or any kind of thing coming into your airspace, right? It is used typically to protect a city or something like that, because I believe the span of protection might be 20 miles, something like, tell me exactly, folks, what was it, 20 miles or so, I think, which would be like 30 kilometers. In other words, it's not like it's a protecting the whole country kind of shield. That's not what it is. It's used to protect a very important target. It could be the main offices of government in Ukraine, for example, right? Well, in any case, what happens with the Patriot missile systems, thank you, Archer, is a Patriot missile system, we say system on purpose because it's made up of a number of things. One of the things it's made up of are the launchers. The launchers are the actual device that launches the missiles into the air for the intercept. It's also made up of a radar system, and the radar system obviously is tracking stuff in the air. There's also a sort of command and control, I don't know what it is exactly, but feature, which is the people that actually look at the radar and can do it manually if they want. You also can set the system to be totally automatic and just go after everything. Well, therefore, a Patriot missile system is all these different parts, comprised of these parts. The Germans have provided 2 new launcher systems. What's good about that is this, well, 2 things. One, you could certainly fall back on the launchers if you need, meaning if your launcher gets damaged, you've got an extra one. But even better, you've got your system in place already. It can fire X number of missiles. Putting another launcher in the system means you can fire even more missiles at one time. So the Ukrainians can better protect either Kyiv or wherever it is. So this is good. Anyway, very good of the Germans, just very good of the Germans. In terms of what's going on across the Dnipro River, I will tell you again, ain't a lot of updates on what's going on with the counteroffensive. There's almost no details on anything as far as updates coming out of the Ukrainians today. The Deputy Defense Minister of Ukraine said that it is not confirmed. Report that Ukrainian forces conducted a raid on the southern side of the Dnipro River. Now, remember, we were talking about this yesterday. There was talk it pretty much is clear something happened, okay? Too many of the Russians were talking about this, the Russian military bloggers, the people that are on the ground, that there was a lot of fighting going on around here, right south of the river. You see the river here, Dnipro River cutting through Ukraine. And remember, south of the river, this is all Russian controlled. So this here, and then going here south of the river. So the Ukrainians have been mostly fighting here, counteroffensive happening around here, also some fighting around Bakhmut, and the Russians are causing a lot of trouble up here in Kupiansk as well. But the Ukrainian counteroffensive is focused here. But this is the area where the flood happened. The flood has receded now. And the Ukrainians are clearly causing some trouble around here. They crossed the river with enough men to again, cause some trouble. The question is this a feint? Is this meant to fool the Russians? Are they trying to trick the Russians into thinking, the Ukrainians are there, we better throw a lot of troops in that area? Or is it an actual preparation for maybe something bigger? Do the Ukrainians really plan? Because as I said yesterday, if your goal, and we know the Ukrainian goal has to be, to come down and at some point here, wherever, cut the Russian occupation in half, because remember, this is all the Russian occupation. They want to cut it in half. You could cut it in half up here, you could do here, or you could invade from Kherson and come all the way down to here and cut it here, and now you've cut off Crimea, super important, from the rest of the occupation. Either way, any of those work. So this could be Ukraine trying to trick Russia. It could be Ukraine legitimately moving into Kherson. We don't know. any case, the Ukrainians are still sort of saying, oh, we don't confirm. Institute for the Study of War is saying, the big defense think tank, clearly something's happening on that bank of the river. Poland. So Poland is sending an additional 2,000 troops to the border with Belarus. Poland. Okay, Poland bordering Ukraine right here, but it also goes all the way up here. Well, once it gets up here, this is the border Poland shares with Belarus. Belarus is Russia's neighbor. Russia's all the way over here. Russia's neighbor, run by the dictator Lukashenko. They're a party to the war, but they're not a party to the war. They never invaded Ukraine, but they have let Russia invade Ukraine from their territory, let Russia launch attacks from their territory. They're now letting the Wagner Group operate in their territory. So clearly they're a party to the war, even though they're playing games a little bit. Well, there have been a lot of concerns by the Poles, because the Poles border Belarus right here, by Lithuania. Lithuania also borders Belarus up here. Latvia borders it up there as well. 3 NATO countries. Very concerned about what's going on in Belarus because, first of all, you've got maybe 4,000 men of the Wagner Group there. This is the mercenary group that tried to overthrow Putin. Also, very good fighters. They're war criminals, but they're very good fighters. So the neighboring countries are not happy. It's basically like having a gang move into your neighborhood. Is the way the Poles and the other Baltic countries feel. Therefore, Poland has moved another 2,000 troops to the border there. Let me see here. Oh, I was sort of taking some notes on what I thought was interesting here. What's getting interesting with this? Clearly, the Russians, because the Belarusians are doing this on purpose. I mean, they started holding military exercises with Wagner on the border. They started holding live fire exercises. Thank you, Tomcat, where they have tanks firing live ammunition on the border with Poland. They're clearly trying to antagonize Poland. What gets interesting at some point with all the troops, Poland is moving to the border with Belarus. Belarus is going to have to start moving troops to the same border. So all of a sudden, all those troops that we know Putin wants those troops to invade Ukraine. The Belarusian dictator is trying to stop it from happening, I think, but Putin wants him to. Those troops are going to have to start getting bunched up near the Polish border now and not be even thinking of Ukraine. That's good. You've got the same thing, frankly, the Wagner groups as well. Lukashenko probably is going to want to keep the Wagner groups in Belarus to protect him and not use them to go into Ukraine. So, and for a final point. If you're Russia, at some point, all these troops from Poland and the other Baltic countries moving to the Belarusian border are going to start to worry you because Belarus is your big ally. You can't afford to lose Belarus, or it certainly would be a big setback for Russia to lose Belarus. And even though you and I know we're not going to be invading Belarus anytime soon, Putin doesn't know that, and Putin can't assume that. So I just feel like all of this BS that's going on with the Belarusian dictator trying to threaten Poland, Latvia, and Lithuania, if they move enough troops to that border, the Russians are going to have to start responding because it starts to become a security threat to Russia is what I mean. And then Russia is going to have to start moving its military assets in the same direction, not towards Ukraine, which is great. Okay, I'm going fast today. I did have tea earlier, so that's probably why I'm going fast. Let me do a quick pitch for my subscriptions. Then I've got 2 really interesting stories to talk to you about that are a little bit longer stories. So one of the ways you guys can support my work, I've talked about this before. I'll just give you the quick roundup. On TikTok is to become a subscriber. 2 ways to become a subscriber. One is the Sasha News Network, as I call it, after my dog, the SNN. You see a number of folks on the screen. They've got that there. You can just subscribe through the page right now, and it lets you support my work. And it also gives you access to our Saturday show, which is Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, U.S., almost every Saturday, but not this Saturday because I'm flying to Chicago that day. But otherwise, we get together every weekend, typically, and we hang out. Usually my friend Vlad in Ukraine joins us. It's a lot of fun. The other way you can support my work, any of you, is via Ko-fi. Ko-fi is basically Patreon. It works like Patreon, but they're nicer. You can go to Ko-fi directly to the web address, ko-fi.com/Aravosis. That's ko-fi.com/Aravosis, my last name. And you go there and you simply can sign up for a month-to-month contribution, whatever category you want. And if you do, now the good thing, TikTok, this doesn't work yet. We're trying. TikTok is having to fix the problem. There's a problem on TikTok's end. But with the other services, Ko-fi, you can subscribe through Discord. You can subscribe through Twitch using your Amazon account, even to my Aravosis account on Twitch. You can subscribe through YouTube. You can become a YouTube subscriber, a monthly subscriber. All the folks you see in green, whose names are in green, Carlos, Susan, don't know if anybody else is here today, scrolling up here. All of those guys are my monthly subscribers with memberships on YouTube. To do that, you click the $ at the bottom of the screen. You see Super Chat, Super Question, Membership, click Membership, and you'll see the categories. That's a monthly membership. And it, again, gives you access to my weekend show. Any of those are access to the weekend show, but those, all the other ones, not TikTok, I apologize because TikTok is broken, but all the other subscriptions also make you a VIP member of my Discord community. That means you get access to our VIP auctions and basically just more generally, you know, you're supporting my work. So if you can, check it out. Like I said, you guys can find all these links actually in my bio. Well, again, TikTok, you can subscribe on TikTok directly. You can go to my bio on TikTok, look at the Linktree link, click it. On the very top of the page, you'll see Ko-fi, Ko-fi. For you guys, is at the bottom of the screen. Or for you guys, if you're YouTube, just like Susan right there, maybe consider becoming a monthly member if you can afford it. All right, thanks, guys. Let me continue. So the Russians are putting out disinformation about the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant. Surprise. So Zaporizhzhia is a nuclear plant under control, a Ukrainian nuclear plant under control by the Russians, okay? So it's right here at the northernmost coast of the river here, but under control by the Russians. And this is the nuclear plant that we've been worried about for a while because the Ukrainians have been worried that the Russians are going to basically either try to blow it up and blame the Ukrainians, or at least cause an explosion to happen just to freak people out, you know? Now that's interesting. Okay. Now I'm sorry, real quick here. So Mike is saying, and I'm assuming, Mike, this is the plant we were talking about, that the death toll at the plant has risen to 35, which is interesting because we had heard a few hours ago 20 dead, but that wasn't a public number. And I wasn't completely sure, so I wasn't going to give it to you guys. But privately, we had talked to people who told us 20 had already died, 35 dead. Now, what gets this is real quick tangent here. Thank you, Maverick, for that on TikTok. What's interesting about this is, I'm assuming that is the same plant that we think the Ukrainians blew up. What gets interesting is, if that many people got killed, you're now talking about possibly some skilled labor being killed. It doesn't really benefit the Ukrainians if regular blue-collar workers, factory workers, you know, that does not benefit Ukraine if they get hurt in the blast or whatever. If they're highly skilled workers, if people that really knew what they were doing, engineers, this kind of stuff, get injured or worse in these kind of attacks, that starts to benefit Ukraine significantly because it's much harder. It's just like in the military, it's much harder to replace people that are more skilled, right? So you start to do more damage. Stephen Bartlett has a super chat question from Canada. Looking at some of the damage, I'm thinking of the bridges from Storm Shadow missiles. It seems they aren't causing as much damage as expected. Now, that's very interesting you say that. There is, I'm going to see if I can find the picture because I was asking somebody about this the other day. I'm going to say Crimea bridge attack and see if I can pull up the most recent photo from like 2 or 3 days ago, because if I can, I'm going to show you. The problem is that they're going to show the bridge. It's the, forget it. I'm going to try the name. I think it was like Chandar. What was the name, guys? It's not Chandar, is it? What's the name of the bridge? Help me out here. What's the name of the bridge that is that they attacked the other day? Let me look at my map. I'll tell you. Hang on. Ukraine. Here we go. Country in Europe. All right. Oops. The name of the bridge is Chonhar. Okay. Chonhar Bridge. Hang on. I'm going to show you the picture because this is very funny you say that. Because I thought the same thing and I Googled it and got an answer actually. Hold on. Chonhar. Here we go. Okay. Images. There's one image in particular. Come on, guys. Oh, come on. Shoot, that's a video. It never is like going to show up when you need it. Hold on. Let me look at news 1 second. News may have it though. Yeah, let me see. There's one, oh, thank you for that. There's one picture in particular, but it's important for you to see this one photo. Problem is a lot of these stories don't have photos. Who has photos? All right. This is going to piss me off. There is a famous iconic photo of that bridge that got hit. Actually, this photo still does it justice. Here's the story on Yahoo. Notice how there's a hole in the pavement that goes through, but the pavement is still up. The bridge is still up. Here, check it out. There's a hole in the pavement, but the bridge is still up. I saw that and I thought, that's a little weird. It almost looks like the bomb went through the bridge and didn't blow up. Well, talking to experts on this, the missile didn't work correctly. Now, it may have been set wrong, or the missile itself just may have been wrong. This could have been a British missile. Could have been, as Callum says, could have been a French missile, because the Brits and the French sort of co-made the missile. Callum found the missile, or the picture. Okay, hang on a second. Yeah, this is the photo. Okay, here we go. This is the photo. So take a look at this photo. It's horrific. There's just a hole in the middle of the bridge. All you have to do is drive around the hole, right? Check it out. All you have to do is drive around the hole. It's ridiculous. That's because the missile literally went through the bridge and then exploded. Either didn't explode at all, or it exploded later after it went into the ground, but didn't cause much damage. It basically needed to be set so that it blows up as soon as it hits the bridge, or right before the bridge, or whatever, and it didn't. And now, again, the Ukrainians could have set it incorrectly. The missile could have operated incorrectly, but that's at least one reason why you're seeing it not do as well, because the Storm Shadow should have done some really good damage on that bridge. You are correct. So a little bit strange. Zaporizhzhia. Zaporizhzhia. So I was telling you about Zaporizhzhia. Thank you for that, Stephen. So the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, that's the one that we've been worried about the Russians blowing up or something. The Russians are now claiming, and again, you always have to be worried when Russia accuses you of something, because A, the Russians lie all the time. B, very often the Russians are accusing you of something that they're going to do or they just did. So Russia is accusing Ukraine of firing a drone attack at their own nuclear plant. That they said the Ukrainians tried to blow it up with a drone. Well, first of all, a single drone probably isn't going to do a lot of damage to a nuclear plant. But it made me very suspicious as to what the Russians might be up to. Obviously, Ukraine did not attack its own nuclear plant. That would be idiotic, and they wouldn't do it anyway, because why would they, right? I mean, they're Ukrainians surrounding the plant. They're not going to try to irradiate their own people. That's ridiculous. And frankly, there's no advantage to it. The advantage is to Russia. First of all, it'd be very hard to blow up the plant. But if you blow up that plant, you would irradiate the entire area. And what does that do? That would make this area unlivable. Well, if this area is unlivable, how does Ukraine take it back? They can't get their troops in here, right? They can't control this area if it's irradiated and they can't be there. So none of that makes sense. False flag, whatever it is, the Russians are playing games. Interesting side story that I saw, and I just want to mention this because I think it's weird and very interesting, and there's something going on we don't know. So the head of Ukrainian military intelligence, General Budanov, who's very smart guy, very wickedly smart, evil man, not evil in a bad way, evil in a good way, like evil in a, Dr. Evil kind of way. Like he's like a Bond villain, but a good guy. If a Bond villain were a good guy, that would be Budanov. Just brilliant. I mean, brilliant what this guy does. So all the kind of crazy attacks Ukraine's done, he's been responsible for. Cunning, good word, cunning. Well, he led a Ukrainian official delegation to Bulgaria to discuss security issues over the last day. And there's a picture of him wearing a regular suit in Bulgaria. Why would the head of Ukrainian military intelligence, who's like day to day doing all the attacks on Moscow, I guarantee you he had a hand in that explosion of the factory outside of Moscow, what's he doing leaving the country and going to Bulgaria? Unless it's something really, really big. So I don't know what it is. It's really big, whatever he was doing. I wish I could know what it is. I don't know that we're ever going to know. But I say this in a good way, suspicious as hell that this guy left the country to go have this meeting. It means something big, because otherwise he wouldn't leave. It's too, first of all, it's risky for him leaving. He could get killed. The Russians want to kill him. But it's also, anyway, something big is happening is my point. A good big thing. So the last story I want to tell you, which I'm going to read you some excerpts, is I believe I got it via the New York Times, I think, but it's not the Times. It is talking about a prestigious, thank you, Courtney, a prestigious British think tank. Please do keep the TikTok gifts coming, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you, Ellie. It's a prestigious British think tank, defense think tank, called the Royal United Services Institute for Defense and Security Studies. Okay, according to the New York Times, regarded as one of the world's leading defense and security think tanks. Let me read you this from the Times. And again, Timothy, anybody who watches my show is going to know why I'm reading this to you. Thank you, Elizabeth. Ukraine's counteroffensive may be moving at a slower pace than Western leaders would like, but a new analysis by a British think tank suggests that's because those same Western leaders moved too slowly to send Ukraine the tanks, armored vehicles, and ammunition it needed. The analysis, published Tuesday by the Royal United Services Institute for Defense and Security Studies, regarded as one of the world's leading defense and security think tanks, concluded that Western officials hesitated too long over whether to send key weapons to Ukraine. It says that decisions were delayed, even though there was widespread understanding more than a year ago of what would be required for Ukraine to push back Russian forces and reclaim territory in the east and south. Let me read you two more paragraphs. The most glaring deficiency is the inability of Ukraine's partners to appreciate the lead times between decisions and their desired effects. I swear to God, I could have written this. Mr. Watling wrote, the guy in the report, this deficiency is being demonstrated at great cost in Ukraine's current offensive. For example, this is the last paragraph I'm going to read. You could go read the whole thing. For example, he said, officials in Western capitals were becoming aware in July of 2022. Okay, it's August of 2023, 13 months ago, of what Ukraine would need for its counteroffensive. And were told directly starting last September of specific and necessary training, equipment, and support requirements. So last September, NATO was told these are the weapons Ukraine's going to need and these are the training they're going to need. They knew it last September again, 11 months ago. It's August right now. Even so, Mr. Watling noted, decisions to fulfill the requests were not made until mid-January. They waited 4 months to fill the requests. Had the decision to equip and train Ukrainian forces been taken and implemented when the requirements were identified in the autumn, Ukraine would have had a much easier task in reclaiming its territory, the think tank concluded. I'm going to have to go and put that on Twitter later because you guys are at least nice whenever I bring this up. The people on Twitter, I get all of Joe Biden's boyfriends who come on and girlfriends who come on and go, don't be mean to Biden. Now, I will say this, Republicans do the same thing. It's not just Democrats. Thank you, Jen and Bonnie. But it's this, you can't criticize the leader, God forbid. I have said this from the freaking beginning. Thank you, Nicola. I've said this from the freaking beginning. That we dragged our feet, and then, like the tanks are the example I give, we dragged our feet on the damn tanks. And finally, we came through, thank you, Scott, on the tanks in January, and it took 3 months for the Leopard tanks from the Germans to even begin to arrive. And again, most of them apparently aren't even there yet. The American tanks, maybe next month a couple will arrive, which will be nice. We're waiting for 31 to arrive. The fighter jets, we didn't even agree to the damn fighter jets until May of this year. They won't arrive for a year. The British tanks are there, but the British tanks aren't that many. I mean, it's fine. The British tanks help, obviously. Hey, better than the Americans. I mean, I'll give the Brits that. The Brits don't have as many, and they gave a large quantity. So I do appreciate what the Brits did. Thank you, Bonnie. But bottom line is, we screwed the Ukrainians. I will always go back to the beginning of the war. And you remember, I want to think wasn't it as early as March of last year, the end of March? But you remember it was that first month or two of the war that Poland wanted to give like almost 200 MiG fighter jets, thank you, user 2119, to Ukraine. And they said, but we want to do it via Germany, American air base in American military base in Germany. And the Americans be the ones to transfer them because Poland didn't want to do it by itself. He wanted the protection of everybody else. The Germans said, oh no, The Americans said, oh no, we don't want to touch it. And the deal never went through. That was to give Ukraine the fighter jets Ukraine already uses. So, I mean, escalation, it would have been the exact fighter jets Ukraine already uses. We wouldn't even give them those at the beginning of the war. Anyway, it pisses me off because I said this from the beginning and I talked about it too. Like, if you go into a fight like this and you know you need 100 of something and you say, let's start with 10. 10 isn't enough if you need 100. And then later on you say 20. And then you say, actually, the example I keep giving is cancer, like an illness where you need chemotherapy, because that's almost the perfect example. You need a certain amount of chemotherapy. You need a certain amount of radiation or you will not be cured. And saying, let's start with maybe 20% of the chemo you need. Well, no, right? And then you finally get to the point where it's 70% of the chemo you need. And you're going, well, it's not enough chemo. B, you also, the whole time you got the chemo and it wasn't enough, the cancer has been spreading because it's almost like antibiotics as well. You're taking not enough antibiotics. So it's affecting a little bit the disease you've got, the bacteria or whatever, right? But it's the bug, but it's not affecting it sufficiently. So the bug is living longer. In this case, the Russian bug lived longer. Russia is the cancer. Yeah. The Russian bug lived longer and it got to propagate much more and grow much more. Again, the problem is this is what bothered me from the beginning. I get that Biden was afraid of escalation. I get Biden was afraid of angering Putin. He thought Putin was going to use nukes. I think it was total BS from the beginning about Putin using nukes. I also think that there's also the aspect of, you know what? You're the president of the United States. You've got to show some backbone. Here's the thing. I saw somebody say in the last 6 months, or maybe last year, I forgot who it was, but was talking to someone. I couldn't tell you what now because, again, I read and watch so many things, but it was in the last year. And somebody had said, oh, I know what it was. You know what it was? I know what it was. It was that movie, Daniel, maybe you recommended it, O'Neill, that movie from TV movie from 1986 from the, what was it? From the British, probably the BBC. And it was a movie about basically like nuclear war breaking out between the Americans and the Brits, the Russians, the Americans, et cetera, right? And it had in it one of the people who was being a big dove, who was afraid of challenging the Russians or whatever. And in the movie, they showed that the person who was afraid said, well, if you say that, no, it wasn't Dr. Strangelove. It was a very well done. It was a very smart TV show. Is it The Day After? No, guys, come on. I said this is British. This is a British BBC type show that was done showing the discussions of an actual, what would be Threads. It's called. Is that what it's called? Threads? Yeah. Very interesting, but showing the British government discussing what's going on and what the responses would be. And what happened was the person who didn't want to stand up to the Russians said, if you stand up to the Russians, if we stand up to them, there's a chance we could have war. And the person responding said, yeah, that's the whole reason we've got our military. If we never, ever, thank you, Nick, if we make clear we will never use our military, right? That we will, at all costs, we will avoid war with Russia, then there will be war with Russia because our military will not be a deterrent. But you don't have a deterrent if you make clear to the other guy, you're terrified of fighting and you will never fight. And this was a point I made about Biden in the beginning. Biden at the beginning made clear he would do everything to not go to war with Russia. He didn't want to send the MiG fighter jets because he said, remember World War III? Again, any of you guys who watch my show for a long time now, thank you, Elizabeth, will remember this. Biden, my rant about World War III. Thank you, Flower Lady. Biden talked a lot about World War III. It'll be World War III if we give them those jets. And it'll be war with a country with nukes. We can't go to war with a country with nukes. Thank you, Martin. And I said from the beginning, okay, if you're saying publicly that you are terrified of going to a war with Russia because Russia has nukes and therefore it will be nuclear war, then you're basically saying you will never go to war with Russia, because Biden said, if we go to war with a nuclear country, per se, the battle will become nuclear and we will all die. And I said at the time, and I still stand by it, if going to war with Russia means we all die, then as leader of the United States or any country, you should do anything possible to never go to war with Russia, because losing half your country is certainly better than everybody dying, right? And that was my point, was what Biden was arguing was there's nothing Russia could do that would justify war, because what are we all would die if there was war. And obviously it's better to lose Alaska or lose France or lose Germany or lose Florida than all of us die. So if I'm Russia, I'm hearing this and going, there's literally nothing that I could do as Russia that the US is going to get into war with me over. So anyway, but that's the interesting point that came from the show, was basically the lady saying, we can't do anything that would risk war. And the guy explaining to her, well, actually, if we won't do anything that risks war, then our deterrent doesn't exist at all. Because you literally have to be prepared for war in order to stop wars. That's the only way to stop them. So in any case, all right. Oh, anyway, that was, so that was it for that story. That story just blew my mind, though. Absolutely blew my mind that was the story. Actually, let me show you two things really quick. So I don't have them up yet. We've got the new auction items are up. No, the new auction items will probably go up tomorrow. I leave on Saturday, so I've got to get them rolling. But I wanted to show you two of the new auction items just for fun. Actually, there's still a couple auction items that are up right now. What do I still have up right now, guys? I've got one or two up right now still. I'm just basically on Discord. I do auctions, and I put some as public auctions and some as private auctions to benefit Ukraine and to benefit my work. So there's only one thing left. Yeah, half the money I send to Ukraine, half the money I take, because I do this full time and it's literally my only job. So for both of them, but I wanted to show you really quick. So two cool things. One is a very cool commemorative coin from Ukraine that is, or commemorative coin that is privately made. They're not made by the Ukrainian government, but it's of the Ghost of Kiev, which is really cool. And I've got the little thing to protect it in. But the Ghost of Kiev is this perhaps apocryphal, we don't know. See the plane there? Perhaps apocryphal, we don't know. Or do they call them challenge coins? I never know what to actually call it. A challenge coin was a story at the beginning of the war that there was a guy, a fighter pilot, who apparently they believe blew up tons of Russian planes. And he became this sort of myth, possibly real, we don't know, but this myth, but a very embraced myth in Ukraine of this amazing fighter pilot. And he was called the Ghost of Kiev because nobody knew who he was. So it's just kind of a neat story. So that's for him. And the other one, and this is really nice, it is traditional Ukrainian jewelry made by Ukrainian American. She might be here tonight. Wild Hunt Corsetry. I will always forget your guys. Larissa, that's it. Larissa, and it is a necklace that she made. And as I'm dropping it while we're talking, I don't see. I'm being bad because I don't have the details. I think Larissa will have to tell us. Larissa, are you here? I think this is made from an egg. I know it is because she had told me it's made from an egg. I don't remember if it's ostrich or what. I don't think of course, the one day I'm showing this, but it's handmade, obviously, with traditional Ukrainian designs, but I believe it's the pisanka egg technique that they do batik. So it literally is, you draw with a stylus with wax, and you paint it with wax, and then you dip it in color, and then you remove some of the wax and dip more color, and it's done like that. I am 99% sure this is a pisanka egg. Yep. But I'm going to have to double check with her to make sure, but I think it is because I haven't put it up yet. That's why I hadn't really. I've got it in my notes. Oh, no, different. I'm going to assume different Larissa. Larissa, who just bought the gift. Thank you for that. I'm assuming you're not the same Larissa. But anyway, I will find out for her when I put it up. It's got to be a pisanka. It has to be. Yeah. Because I remember her telling me, but I've got to look through the explanation she did of it and everything. But anyway, We'll get to it, but it's very cool. Different one. That's okay. Good name though. All right, guys, let's talk. Yeah, suspense. You're totally right. It's not showing you as a subscribed member. I don't know why. Yeah, it's something else happened, and I don't know what it is. And you're not in my list. I told you as well. So I don't know why. All right, guys, let's talk. So let's do questions and all of that. Question away. We got a good 15, 20 minutes probably. What do we got? This is a different necklace though. This is a different one. The last week was earrings, and the earrings were made from the pisanka as well. Yep. Oh, hey, Wei in China. Good to see you. We don't usually get folks from China here. Nice to see you. Okay, so Goonerman's asking about Wagner being kicked out of Belarus. There's the problem is there. Oh, sorry, real quick. Sorry, Stephen Bartlett, really quick, had a super chat comment. Wouldn't it be funny if Ukraine invaded Kaliningrad and took it over? Okay, that would be funny. So Kaliningrad is the Russian territory. I'm gonna open this up. Is the Russian territory that is kind of a little bit further over in Europe, right north of Poland, right south of Lithuania. I had thought about that. It would be, no, I don't know. The problem is Ukraine can't afford to do it, but it would be pretty cool. It would be pretty cool. Yeah, I was just going to say, right. I dropped it too. You're right. Probably good not to drop it. But anyway, that would be pretty fun. If they had enough men to go after Kaliningrad and totally freak the Russians out, would be pretty funny. In any case, all right. Oh yeah. So we were talking about, so there's a rumor going around that the Belarusians have, kicked the Wagner guys out of Belarus. I don't believe it. I mean, there's nothing to back it up. It was like in the Daily Mail or something, and I don't trust the Daily Mail. And literally nobody is talking about this. Now, it's always possible. There's some truth to this, but it's not anywhere. It's not anywhere. So I wouldn't trust it yet. Your mother was born there? Oh, wow. Oh, was she born there like before? Now, Kaliningrad, I'm assuming was part of, well, okay, I'm going to probably get this wrong, but because European geography, you guys confuse me, but Kaliningrad, it was either part of Poland or was it part of Germany? I was going to say German is what I remember, even though it looks like it's Northeast Poland because that part of Poland was German. Prussia, that's why. Okay. I was just going to say, I figured it was like old German, so to speak, right? Yep. Okay, there we go. That's a good question, Justin. Justin's asking, do you think NATO would step in if it meant preventing the fall of Ukraine or a complete breakdown? That's the problem with what's going on. If Ukraine were to lose the war, in essence, and there was the danger of not just Russia keeping the areas of the country it currently has, but imagine this, okay? Imagine the counteroffensive just isn't successful. Russia is able to hold on to this, but also Russia is able to now to start advancing to try to come in Kharkiv too, so they can start to take the entire country. Would NATO move in? Would Poland move in? Poland potentially on its own could say, that's it. We're moving into this part of the country to at least put troops here so that Russia can't move in here. This is why yet another reason I think that this policy of worrying about escalation is perhaps going to guarantee escalation. I've said this from the beginning. Poland might do it by themselves. I've said it from the beginning. Biden is not in this to win. That's not his goal. Thank you, Brock. His goal is to tie. He wants Ukraine to get some of its land back, not all of it. I think there's no chance Biden wants Ukraine to get Crimea back. Again, I know my government. I don't know other government. Poland, France and Germany, I can't tell you what's going on there. America, I can tell you. I think Biden does not want Ukraine to get Crimea. He's afraid what Putin will do if Ukraine tries to get Crimea. He's okay with Ukraine getting back the territories, right now. And therefore, we made sure that the weapons we gave Ukraine, and by the way, Germany and France could have been instigating this as well. We made sure that we gave Ukraine enough weapons that maybe they could get back their land, the land from this war, not from this war, over the last year, but not enough weapons that they could take this. And This was the analysis. Well, if we give them too many weapons and too good of weapons, they'll take Crimea too. And if they take Crimea, Putin will use his nukes, right? Because they were afraid of Putin. He's not going to use his nukes, but nonetheless, Biden's afraid of that. If you give Ukraine too many weapons, they take this and then Putin gets angry. If you give Ukraine too few weapons, what happens? The counteroffensive fails. Well, if you're Biden in the United States or even France and Germany, do you really care if the counteroffensive fails? Really? Right? I mean, I'm afraid from his perspective, as long as you keep Ukraine intact, Russia gets this. Okay, it's not great that Russia got this, but is it the end of the world? Again, I don't agree with this, but I think Biden's thinking, it's at the end of the world if we lose this, right? And Putin doesn't go nuclear, and we wait for another day for the next war in 5 and 10 years. But in other words, the risk of giving too many weapons to Ukraine is they take Crimea, and Biden's afraid of that. The risk of giving too few weapons, Ukraine loses the counteroffensive and they lose the war. Oh, well. Now, they don't want Russia to take the entire country. That's why they're going to keep giving just enough so Russia can't take the rest of the country. The problem is Russia may be able to take the rest of the country because of the way we're doing this, because we've so screwed up the counteroffensive for the Ukrainians. We gave them too few weapons, not enough good weapons, and we delayed getting them to them for so long that the Russians were able to build in, and we're still delaying. America still won't give Ukraine these weapons called ATACMS that are these long-range rockets that Ukraine needs, and Ukraine would be able to cause a lot of damage to Russia's supplies, which is what they need to do going in here, and Biden just refuses to provide them. And I guarantee you, at some point, I swear to God, I'm going to have an aneurysm the day this happens. At some point in the future, we're giving them the ATACMS. Mark my words, remember this broadcast. I could be wrong, but I would bet you at some point in the future, we are going to give the weapons to Ukraine, the ATACMS weapons anyway. And then it'll be too late. Just wait. And then it'll be so late that we're going to go, why the hell didn't we do it 6 months ago or a year ago? I guarantee you. Obama did drop the ball. Yes, I agree on that, Tom. Well, having said that, there was a little bit of an issue. So Obama dropped the ball because it happened 2014. Russia invades for the first time. They take Crimea. The problem back then was, I talked to Yulia about this and some other folks too. The problem back then, Ukraine was not prepared to defend itself, okay, back then. So granted, the Europeans and America kind of washed its hands, but who were we going to help? We were going to help the Ukrainian army that wasn't very good back then. They had 8 years of training after that, and they became a much better fighting force. But back then we believe, we could have been wrong, but we believe we would have been financing the kind of military we thought we were financing this time when we said, oh God, they won't be able to fight them off. But nonetheless, I agree with you. We should have done a hell of a lot more. But at the very least, Europe and America could have done all the sanctions they did last time, and they didn't. Thank you, Suspense. Well, it still pisses me off, though. Well, you can do, the thing is, what you can do is cancel the thing on YouTube and just sign up via Discord. It's cheaper anyway than what you just did. I mean, I appreciate what you just did, but it's cheaper just to go on Discord. But just go up on Discord and sign there. Discord is cheaper if you use your computer to sign up. If you use your phone, they'll add 30% that they take. But if you use your computer, it's cheaper than this. And then that'll give you the monthly, it'll give you the VIP auction, it'll give you the Saturday show and everything else. It's just, if it's not working, it's easier. Anyway, sorry guys, helping somebody with their membership. Biden did just finally agree to F-16 training. I didn't even mention it because, I thought they agreed to that a week ago. A week ago, they put out the message that the training was going to go ahead. Now they're saying, oh, Biden agreed today to the training. Lovely. Thank you. I'm Irish. I appreciate that. Just drives me crazy. Drives me absolutely crazy. Oh, try not to, Alex. Well, I hope people aren't lying. I try. I certainly don't lie. I mean, I can get things wrong, but I try not to. F-15 would be perfect for this. So what it's meant for is to dominate contested airspace. Right. I mean, the problem is they from everybody who knows this better than I, the Ukrainians do not have the air power they need for this fight. They just don't. Thank you, Timothy. But again, these weapons would have helped them a lot. And honestly, this counteroffensive, I'm so glad that think tank gave that analysis, the British think tank, that's the same thing I said a couple of days ago. we delayed the weapons and the training we were getting the Ukrainians. So the Ukrainians ended up having to delay their counteroffensive. And by delaying the counteroffensive, it gave Russia even more time to dig in. Now, mind you, Ukraine asked for these weapons back in September, and we waited until January to agree to the tanks, right? Had all that stuff been agreed to in September, Russia would have not just had 3 months fewer, they might have had 6 months fewer to dig in. And by not digging in as much, it would have been much easier to take them on today. We are to blame for Ukraine having a hard time with the counteroffensive, which is why it's so offensive to even hear things on CNN yesterday about, Western officials are very disappointed at the pace of the counteroffensive and concerned. Oh, are you now? Really? Gee. Joe McKinnon, Ukraine's lost many people to win. Will boots on the ground have to be upped from elsewhere? The problem is, in the end, I don't think NATO's going to get involved. Again, Poland might, the Baltic states might, but NATO's not going to. NATO's not going to invade and enter the war. They're not. Again, bottom line is Biden still won't give the damn missiles to Ukraine that they need, the ATACMS. Do you think he's going to put American troops there? Right? The problem is going to be just that. Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland might. I almost think you guys in the East, you already got Lori. I have no idea. I'm sure. Oh, well, I'd have to check, Lori. I don't check every day on those things, but I'm sure I did if you gave it. I appreciate that. Thank you for that. There's also a number of ways of giving tips. So I'd have to check, it could be Venmo, it could be Cash App, it could be TikTok's tips, for example, which I can look right now. You guys can donate by going on TikTok, just go to my profile. You can donate via the tip button there. You also can click the Linktree link in my TikTok profile. And there's lots of ways, Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, etc. I will open this and look right now since you mentioned that, just to check. But I don't check every day, so that's why it's I don't always know. Oops. I don't know. I have no idea. Not on the tips thing, but it might have been somewhere else. In any case, no. I don't agree with that, David. I don't agree with that. I think that's a little bit of disinformation put there. That's kind of some Russian. Thank you, Tattooed Mom. There's some Russian. I think it's Russian disinformation saying, "Oh, the Ukrainians were willing to accept peace," and Boris Johnson went and said, "Oh my God, don't." I'm not convinced on that. I'm just not convinced. I do think we have not helped Ukraine to the degree. Oh, I know what I was going to say. At some point, I think the Baltic states and Poland need to just sort of step up and say, "That's it." If the rest of you are going to keep dilly-dallying, we're going on our own, And frankly, what you need to do is you need to put troops in Western Ukraine to at least protect the country. Not even Western Ukraine. You need to put troops everywhere that is not occupied by the Russians, so that if the Russians actually get in that territory, they've got to kill some of your troops. And when they do, they're killing NATO troops. That's my theory on it. Because that's what we should have done before Russia invaded. Before Russia invaded, we should have just put troops there. And Russia said, Putin promised us he's not invading, right? Putin promised. There's no problem putting American troops on the ground. He said he's not invading. We're going to put all sorts of NATO troops there. We should have done it from the beginning and just said, great, he said he's not invading. And if he invades, he's at war with NATO. Simply done. And watch the Russians. What would the Russians do? The Russians would say, oh, this is an act of war. You'd be like, no, you said you weren't invading. Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Tattooed Mom, right? You said you weren't invading. What's the problem? Anyway, is there any chance the U.S. could send some A-10s? I don't know what's up with that, Sally. I know people have raised that question before. Thank you again, Joe, for that. People have raised that question before on the A-10s. I don't know enough about, I know what A-10s are, the Warthog. But I don't know well enough whether... I do know from the beginning, people have said the A-10s would need other support, right? Well, Corporal Bongster is saying the reason A-10s aren't being sent is because they're too slow. Correct. And they would need other air support or they'd get blown up. But could A-10s be sent with F-16s? Would that not work? Nick, it just depends which way you want to do it. If you go to my profile, thank you, by the way, Karen, go to my profile. It's got my PayPal address. It's got my Cash App. It's got my Venmo. I would say just use one of those. I appreciate it. Thank you for trying. Or Nikki, I'm sorry, I'm calling you Nick. Nikki, thank you for that. But just use one of those, the PayPal, the Venmo, or the Cash App. That's easier because those always work. and thank you, by the way. Danielle O'Neill, Storm Shadow Scalp, which is the French version, and Taurus, which is the German cruise missile the Ukrainians want. And the Germans said, oh, why do you need that? You don't need that. All are air-launched from planes. Interesting. I didn't know about the Taurus. ATACMS are ground-launched and have a significantly better time to target, way better, so badly needed, what a pity. Yes, I didn't even mention that. So I didn't know about the Taurus. I did know that the Storm Shadow and the Scalp are, both sides of the same coin. It's the cruise missiles that the French and the Germans made together. French and the Brits. The Brits already provided the Storm Shadow cruise missiles a few months ago. The French ones are either coming now or have already arrived. I don't know which. And the Ukrainians asked again this week for the Taurus German missiles, and the Germans said, oh no. So what is interesting though, all of them are launched from planes, which is a little bit of an impediment because you've got to have a plane get off the ground to launch them. The ATACMS are launched from HIMARS, or maybe they can be launched from other things too. But the main way the Ukrainians would use them is from the HIMARS system, which is that really good mobile rocket system we gave them that allows them to fire and then run. So it's very hard for the Russians to hit the HIMARS. And also, Daniel's saying significantly better time to target. I did not know that. But yeah, no, there are some, telling you guys, he's going to agree to the ATACMS at some point. He really is. And I swear to God, I'm going to excoriate him publicly when he does it, because Zelensky said this months ago. I forget whether it was F-16s or something else. And he literally said, it was kind of ballsy of him, but Zelensky literally said, look, NATO, you're going to give me all these weapons anyway. Can we just stop playing this game where I ask for something, you say no, and then 6 months later you say yes? Could you just say yes now and like we could use this? Yeah. Very frustrating. M2, they can be fired from the M272. Okay, so in other words, they can be fired from a number of different multiple launch rocket systems that the Ukrainians have, the HIMARS, but also similar systems that they got from Europe as well, which is good. So even more utility of a number of different vehicles they can be fired from, which is great. From your lips to God's ears, Joshua. Sorry, Joshua saying on Facebook. Thank you, Paolo. Russians are failing. They are not going anywhere in this war. Putin should surrender now. I hope so. I still worry that we're not supporting Ukraine enough, but I hope so. I don't know enough about the new sanctions. I'm Irish. I saw them today, but I keep hearing, every day there's new sanctions. I kind of like, I hope we're tightening them up sufficiently, but I just don't kind of care. It's every day there's new sanctions. I'm just kind of tuned out to it, to be honest. And I have no way of judging how significant they are because usually they're very specific, So a line from I Love Lucy. That's funny. Anyway, what else, guys? All right. See you, Chezak. What else? Well, the Russians don't want another war in Poland. That's for sure. Maybe a few more questions, guys, and then maybe we'll go over to the Discord, like I said, and hang out a little bit. How do you put pressure on Biden? It's hard. Honestly, I do it through my show and through my videos. I've got enough of an audience that it's not enough, but it does something. Interestingly, I forgot who was saying they were noticing on Twitter, a lot of the defense people they follow. We'll do Discord tonight. Yeah, I'll go to Discord after this. They noticed that a lot of the defense people they follow on Twitter are talking more and more about just that it seems like the Biden administration is going too slowly here. And I think Twitter especially is interesting because there's a large group of us who follow each other on Twitter. Not everybody follows everybody, but I've got, for example, I have a lot of big journalists following me on Twitter. The defense types, I've got some of the Ukraine folks following me, some not. Like Admiral Stavridis follows me, which I was very excited. The former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO and a Greek. Some of them don't, but a lot of the journalists follow me too. And but for a lot of other folks too. Twitter is interesting because I'm not going to call it X. It's so ridiculous. It's interesting because even though there's a echo chamber, so to speak, of us all talking to each other, we are all people who have loud voices. So like the generals that are there go on TV and give opinions. I go to you guys and give opinions. But there's, I've got over 500,000 Twitter followers or TikTok followers. That's not bad. Over 100,000 Twitter followers. That's not bad. So I have like some vehicles to get my voice out there. All of us defense-oriented, Ukraine-oriented types have got ways of getting our messages out there. And the fact that we keep reinforcing to each other that this is going far too slowly and that the Biden administration is screwing up means hopefully that message will start to get out there more. I don't think it's out there enough. I really don't. Okay. Anyway, looking at this. All right, guys. I think I'm going to do a quick summary, and then let's go over to Discord. All right, let's do that. And by the way, so what I mean is we've got a Discord community. It's discord.aravosis.com. You can go there and join us. There's once you get there, click the README if you're new. Accept the terms. Then you'll see everything pop up, and you'll see in the left-hand column John's after party. Join us at the after party. We go there for half hour, 45 minutes. We just kind of hang out. We hang out and talk. It's not necessarily work. I mean, we don't talk too much about Ukraine, to be honest. I've been on CNN a lot, not about this, but I've done a lot of CNN over the years. It's been several years now, but I used to go on 20 years ago. I used to go on CNN a lot. It was kind of fun though. They used to fly me to New York and stuff. And it was great. I'd go to New York, see my friends, go on CNN. It was like, it was fun. It was fun. And I enjoyed it because it's much more fun being in the studio. When you're on TV, TV is weird because most of the time you go on TV, you're literally in a room by yourself looking at a camera, and that's it. And it's very weird because you've got the host in your ear, you've got the other guest in your ear. It's not fun. It's not like you see on TV when they're sitting in the room together. That's fun. That's a lot of fun. But it's not fun when you're just in a room by yourself, which is what a lot of them were. But I used to be able to go and do a lot of the stuff in the room. So much more fun. But what do you do? All right, guys, let me do a quick summary and then we'll go over to Discord. Day 531 of Putin's 3-day special military operation, huge explosion at an industrial plant northeast of Moscow. Looks like it might have been the Ukrainians. Another drone attack on Moscow as well. 2 Ukrainian drones reportedly. Not clear if they hit anything. Germany sent 2 new Patriot launchers to Ukraine, which will supplement the Patriot missile systems Ukraine has. Very helpful stuff. Actually, you can, I just thought of this too. If you on TikTok, actually, any of you, Aravosis.com is my page of links, mylastname.com. TikTok, you could also just click the link in my profile. Go there, scroll down, and you'll see my LinkedIn. If you go to my LinkedIn page, I've got a bunch of my old television appearances on there. And you could even see me en français. You can even see me doing an interview in France about, now it was 14 years ago, in French, but it was fun. I listen to it now and I'm like, God, my French was good. It's not as good anymore. Thank you, Maverick. But you can see all my interviews there. A lot of them, not all of them. Deputy Defense Minister of Ukraine says the military has not confirmed reports that Ukrainian forces conducted a raid on the south side of the Dnipro River, but it looks like they probably did. Poland is deploying another 2,000 troops to the Belarusian border because the Belarusians are being evil. Senior advisor to President Zelensky has denied that Ukraine attempted to attack the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant. The Russians are basically lying and claiming that Ukraine's attacking their own plant, which is ridiculous. And then I concluded with a long discussion, thank you, Brigitte, of a prestigious British defense think tank that says that Ukraine's counteroffensive may be moving at a slower pace than Western leaders would like because Western leaders got Ukraine the weapons it needed too late. And they were told about it early on, and they ignored the requests and then fulfilled them too late. All right, guys, I am going to jump over to Discord. Please join us there if you're a Discordian. Usually, like I said, I'll put on my pizza. So my pizza will be cooking. I'll be there for a good 25 minutes, probably. Thank you, Marie. Thank you guys for all the gifts. Thank you, moderators. This was a pretty busy day today, so I'm glad you guys joined us. Like I said, join us at Discord. Otherwise, join us tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S. I will be back. We will be doing the same show tomorrow night. Also, the final Dobra Niche, that's cute. Also, the other thing is on Discord. Discord is kind of nice because I check in all day and night anyway until I go to bed. So if you've got questions for me or just want to talk or whatever, I'm always over the Discord. So if you put a question for me on Discord, make sure you Discord works like a lot of social media. You have to at me. If you at me on Discord, I will see the question and I will respond. Gracias, Carla. Mucho gusto. All right, guys. I will see you all tomorrow. Otherwise, I'll go to Discord. See you guys. Thank you, mods. All right. Bye-bye, you guys.